Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today with us in our second Campfire. As some of you know, that we have started this monthly series of technical discussions, which we call Campfire. And the idea behind this is that we talk about topics that are kind of out of the norm of our regular work week, and kind of teach, share, and learn from each other in an informal setting. So today's topic is on mobile development, which is of interest to a lot of us. And we wanted to share some things with you. And we have also invited some folks from Jasper Engines to share their experience with mobile development, as they are a DataFlex shop and they are using iOS, I believe, for their development. So anyway, Oliver is going to present a small presentation, maybe 8 or 10 slides. We'll go over some of the, give you an overview of the development environments, and then we'll start our discussion. The important thing here is that we are not trying to give you an information or it's not a technical presentation from the point of view that we are trying to portray something about our product or what we do. The only way this all works is that if you participate openly, ask questions, so that we can think about some of those things when we go back. So it's very important that you participate and ask questions, whatever it is, and participate in the discussion. So without any further ado, I'll pass on to Oliver.
Okay, so let's get started on this. The reason to talk about mobile development, of course, is some of you may be starting to get some requests in this area. Of course, the growth in the mobile space right now is just amazing. So here's some numbers for you. For the third quarter of 2012, we've got just shy of 170 million smartphones shipped, and you can see a breakup by operating system here of how those are split up. And so you can see we have two operating systems that are really proving to be the ones that are taking over with Android and iOS. We can see way down the list there is Microsoft with their Windows Phone 7, Windows Phone 8 offering, and in fact even some of the other ones out there have eclipsed them a bit. In that group is some foreign operating systems even. But then this other number kind of gives us an idea of why, even though Android has 122 million units, why iOS ends up being so important for most people, and that's the iPad. So we can see that they've sold 84 million units as of September of 2012. And this statement here, other tablets don't matter. Well, from some standpoint, that actually is still true. I wrote that almost a year ago when I first did a presentation like this, and still the number of Android tablets being moved in comparison to iPads is still, iPads are really dwarfing things. So how does this affect the development environment? Well, there are, of course, these three main platforms that people are focusing on with iOS, Android, and Microsoft, and we have a lot of companies that are putting effort into all of them, and essentially they are developing native applications on all three platforms, sometimes even 4 platforms. But of course, that has quite a bit of overhead related to it, and so we're going to actually take a little bit of time to look at some of the cross-platform development environments. So you can see here a list of some of the more popular ones. Some of them you may have heard of, and some of them you may not have. A couple that require a little bit of special attention here. Titanium, this first one listed. Titanium is actually a multi-platform development environment where they've essentially given you a JavaScript interface to that exposes native controls and native frameworks. So when you develop in Titanium, you're actually developing a native application, but instead of writing the code in either Java or C# or Objective-C, you're writing it in JavaScript, which ends up having a little bit lower barrier to entry for a lot of developers than some of those other programming languages. So it's kind of a hybrid environment there, and a lot of people are using it. It's gotten a lot of funding recently to advance that technology. Another one that people have really put a lot of effort into is PhoneGap, the third one listed here. PhoneGap was purchased by Adobe recently, and PhoneGap is a way of doing an application that will go into an app store, whether it's the iOS or Android app store, but you actually are developing a web-based application that's embedded in a window. And basically that is your application. So you have this native wrapper, and again you're using HTML and JavaScript in this case. And you can kind of see the focus all the way down here that all of these cross-platform development environments essentially use HTML5 for their rendering, with the exception of Titanium and Corona, which is a platform focused mainly on game development. So a lot of time and effort has been put into advancing this HTML5 development, no matter which of these frameworks you choose to use. So what are some of the advantages that you get when you use these frameworks? Well, right off the bat, like we had mentioned, JavaScript has this low barrier to entry. It's easy and portable. You do get multi-platform, and but it's not quite as easy as it's made out to be. When you go to specific platforms, you do have various issues that are very unique to that platform. Android has an entirely different user interface concept than you have on iOS, for instance. And so even though you may be able to develop something that is cross-platform, it doesn't mean that it's going to feel native across those platforms. Of course, another advantage is that these HTML5 JavaScript-based toolkits work very well with Ajax and JSON, and of course we know that from a data access standpoint, there's a lot of support for JSON and Ajax in web app servers. That can be an advantage if you're a Visual DataFlex user. And this next point here we'll talk about a little bit later, but WebKit and Internet Explorer, which are basically the two browsers that are being used for this cross-platform development, are both improving very quickly. This is an area of intense research for these companies, and they're putting a lot of effort into advancing the state-of-the-art in the capabilities that are available to the browser. If you just go look at how scrolling was handled just 2 years ago on a mobile device, the amount of change that's occurred just in that one area to support mobile development is just huge. They've added a lot of native support for that. And of course, one of the other big advantages to these mobile frameworks is that you don't have to go through submitting your app to the various app stores, which have rules associated with them, and various standards that you have to meet for various reasons. If you're doing a true web-based application, you can push it out over the web, and of course, not have any of those restrictions placed on you. There are disadvantages, of course, though. These involve the fact that even though you may be using something like Appcelerator, it truly isn't a native environment. It's not as fast, period. You don't have access to everything that you have on a, in a native executable. And of course, one of the other things is that your application ends up with a very certain look to it. So that means that you won't get free updates when the operating system updates the look of things. Your application won't necessarily acquire those looks. And of course, there are some things that just don't work when you go with these frameworks. I've had experience specifically with timing issues where I needed to do very precise timing, and that just isn't possible in these JavaScript frameworks. You are limited in that way. And of course, the multi-threading support, although that is an area that's improving, right now JavaScript really isn't a multi-threaded environment. So there are definitely issues along the way. On this same note, when you look at the this comparison between HTML5 and native, you end up with this various list of how you compare them. one of the big advantages of these frameworks is that you have the ability to write once and run everywhere versus having to develop multiple times if you really did need to push out to multiple mobile operating systems. And of course they are very easy to learn and the distribution is simple, but we have these various performance issues. One of the big ones being the fact that you don't really get GPU acceleration, and some of the animations and things like that just aren't as good on HTML5 as they are on native. So there's still many advantages there. But what I wanted to show you was in relation to this piece where I mentioned the future. A lot of these things are quickly fading away, actually, in relation to using HTML5. And so let me exit out of here. I want to show you guys something that is an area of research. This is a website you can visit yourself, and in fact, since I'm guessing over webinar animations won't work spectacularly, you may want to go to this in Chrome or a recent version of Firefox on your own machine. Famous. This is a research project that actually is getting funding right now that is meant to illustrate what you can do in a browser using a well-developed toolkit. So with this, we're going to have animations at 40 to 60 frames per second on phones, tablets, PCs, and televisions. And this is not using WebGL or canvases, which is very important because it means that you are not limited in the type of development that you can do. So let's show you what this package can do. This is a demo that they have that basically is using the table of elements, and what I want you to notice is how fluid some of the stuff in here is when I do something like switch between these views. I can get fluid animations. I hope this is coming over webinar decent. All of this is being done natively in HTML. There's no add-ins that are running on my machine or anything to handle any of this. And so basically this gets us to an environment using some of these new things that are on their way out of not having to worry about some of these things working on a native platform. You can do this in the web right now without any problem at all. It's just that we're in this period where we're transitioning between them right now. So you may want to take a look at this. You can sign up for a beta of this project. One of the things to mention here, this entire JavaScript-based model is only 65 kilobytes.
Yeah. Oliver, just a little thing here is that those of you who have any mobile device or iPad or anything else should also compare this on those devices and see how this one works. It's completely seamless, like works exactly the same way, and the performance is really amazing, right? So that's one of the things which is probably not coming across, Oliver, very good in this right now.
Yeah, when you go to use this on a mobile device, you'll see that in fact sometimes when I've played with this, it's better on a mobile device than it is on a desktop. Because you have the touch interface and all of that this package supports. So if you go and try this on an iPad or an Android tablet, you're going to see that you have scrolling, the ability to move all of this around in 3D space, just this very capable environment with animations throughout, all of this being done in a browser. So basically what this means is that as we continue down this path of research for these mobile frameworks that are out there, they're going to get better and better, and the advantages of native are going to become smaller over time. And I would imagine that they're going to end up being more focused on things like gaming or alternative GUI frameworks, things like that. And a lot more people are going to be able to develop apps in these HTML-based systems going forward. So the last item I wanted to mention here before we move on to other things is that when you're working through some of this, you really need to spend time on the user interface of your application in comparison to a Windows app, for instance. When you use some of these mobile apps, you'll see people that are going through and they'll try out an app and they'll delete it right away. And what ends up happening is that you have a situation where if your app isn't in a UI state where people feel that it's up to their standards, they're going to just look for some alternate solution rather than using yours, even if yours is functionally correct. So, that's why I state here that a bad app really can be worse than no app at all. And the design that you use on these mobile applications is truly a different thing than what you're going to use on a desktop app. These mobile applications are very single task focused. So, you'll see applications that have one very specific skill and they do that very well and nothing else. Building an application that can do tons of stuff just in general doesn't work out very well. So that's why I kind of mentioned this from the UI design. You need to think about it differently. You need to think about what limited items your application may need in comparison to a full desktop application. So that kind of leads us into the area of what Microsoft is doing. Microsoft is kind of the antithesis of some of these things that I've said recently, because really with Windows 8, as you can see here, I'm on Windows 8 right now. They've really decided that both solutions are what they want to push. So the desktop and this sort of pseudo tablet area is what they've decided to do, and it ends up providing an experience that's somewhere in between these two areas. And in fact, this isn't something that a lot of people are. It's very contentious right now. The number of devices that Microsoft is selling, when you look at the tablet market, is very small, and there's this very divided camp right now between whether Windows 8 should even be on a desktop environment, whether it should simply be on this tablet setup. So we kind of have a weird situation with that piece of it. Does anyone have any questions at all that they wanted to ask or anything like that?
Oliver, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, all of these frameworks that you're using is all HTML5 based, right? More or less, or JavaScript.
Yes.
And I was reading something just a couple of days ago, a comment by Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook. He said the biggest mistake he made with his mobile application was they initially invested in HTML5, and then they switched to the new word, which is native. So if big companies like that are opting more for going native, what future does HTML5 really have in that way?
Well, I think some of this ends up being very specific cases. Certainly, if your goal is to support one platform, if you're looking at writing an application that, your main market is going to be iOS and you don't really see much in Android and that isn't your focus, I think for a small business, developing a native application is probably the best bet. They get those other advantages, and since, the development environment is not substantially harder to learn or substantially more costly to develop for, I think for those cases it ends up working out really well. When you're dealing with a company as big as Facebook, you have different concerns that come in just based on the fact that they're dealing with a more global customer base, that's using so many different devices and all of these things. I think for them it really, they really could afford to do native everywhere, and so why didn't they do native everywhere was kind of the question to ask. I think for a lot of these smaller businesses, though, if you really have to go multi-platform, it's worth considering, based on the type of app you have. So if you have a very rich multimedia application, maybe a cross-platform environment isn't quite right for you. But a lot of the people that I think are probably part of this webinar right now are ones that may have more business-focused applications, and I think for them, this sort of mobile framework that's HTML5 based still has many benefits, that they can really use.
Yeah. Just one comment to the attendees that this is an open mic session, so please feel free to unmute yourself and jump in and give your comments, because that's what we're looking for also. Does anybody have any thoughts on HTML5 versus native on this?
Well, I know where we can get some thoughts on it. We have with us John Holzman and Nathan Rash from Jasper Engines. Nathan, are you on the line now? Sure.
I think he was muted, so it should be.
Yeah, let's see if we can get him on the line here. Let's see if we can get him here.
No, he's there. I see him. His raises. Nathan, are you on the mic? Can you speak up?
I'm not getting audio from him at all. Okay. Well, Nathan, while you're trying to get on, just butt in if we can. If you can. When you get the audio working. In the meantime, I'm going to show a little something else here. So, in relation to some of these multi-OS development questions that people are having, it can be worthwhile to look at what's out there for the various. Close this over here for the various platforms. So on iOS, we have basically iOS development. If you were to choose to go native with it, is set up using multiple frameworks. So you have these various pieces that provide access to certain services. The Cocoa Touch layer is providing you access to the user interface and other features. Media layer, Core Services layer, and Core OS layer. So basically, these various pieces work together to provide this framework for your Objective-C development. When you're looking at iOS development, you are looking at doing this natively on a Mac. There is no solution that takes you off of a Mac and onto a Windows PC for this. And in fact, Jasper, I know, basically had to go out and get Macs to do the development on their application. I'm hoping that in a little bit we can take a look at what they've done here. They have a very tightly coupled MVC design in iOS that they're based on right now. So that can affect how you develop your UI. The UI ends up being something that is, driven truly separately from your data model on the back end, and so for some of us that can be a little bit different development model to deal with. And of course, one of the other big things that's different between iOS and Android and Windows Phone 8 development is that you have the ability to develop one application that has a different look and feel but is compatible across all of the various devices that Apple offers. So that ends up being an advantage. And when you're developing for an enterprise, of course, you have a little bit of a different situation there too, because you're going to be using their they basically have two different types of licensing models that you can get into. One of them is so that you can get apps into the App Store, and they have this alternate model that basically allows for internal distribution of your application across your enterprise. They charge a little bit more for that, and the distribution is different. but they do give you a way of handling that situation. If we go forward to Android, of course, on Android, we're going to be looking at Java-based development, although there are lots of other frameworks out there that let you use alternate programming languages too. And like I said, if anyone wants to chime in with a question, feel free to just start talking, and I'll hit your, make sure that we get your questions answered here. When you go to develop on Android, of course, you have access to a whole bunch of different ways of developing. You can use an MVVM or an MVC development pattern. And of course, you end up with all these applications that act very differently because of that. So let me see here. It looks like maybe we've got Nathan on here. See if we can get hold of him just for a sec here.
So Oliver, the other thing that comes to my mind, and this is for general audience, is that we have seen this kind of platform wars before. We had Unix, and then Unix, some of you are old enough to remember the Unix System 5 Release 4 that was supposed to be a standard operating system, but then IBM, HP, and Sun took off, and they created their own flavors of that. And then Microsoft comes along, Windows is its own, and Mac was its own, and all these companies very fiercely protect their platforms because that's where their revenue is, and Microsoft has proven that if you control the platform, no matter how bad it is or good it is, the apps that get developed on it pretty much ensures that you're going to generate billions of dollars without doing anything much. So is another platform war shaping up, or is it much easier to write these cross-platform tools for mobile environments?
I think we at least have a small platform war headed our way on this. We're going to go ahead and do an unmute all on everybody because we're having some trouble unmuting people. So everybody's now going to be unmuted. Let's see. And did we get Nathan this way now? Okay, we'll keep trying on that. To answer your question, basically since you have this situation where the majority of people are still building native applications, and the number of applications being built on iOS, even though the device counts are out of whack, you have more applications being built on iOS. It's just kind of extreme what's occurring that way. And so I think basically we are going to really see more people, picking sides on this sort of thing. Of course, with the larger vendors, they're able to afford to push out native applications on all the platforms, which is something that really didn't happen all that much before. When you look at, Mac compared to Windows and the applications that are available across both, it's a very, very small percentage overall. So at least from that standpoint, since a lot of these mobile applications share some interface aspects to them and maybe a little bit more simple than what was done on desktop apps, at least from that standpoint, I think we are going to see more people putting applications out on both or on multiple platforms that way. The question is, where does Microsoft fit into this equation right now? Because they're kind of doing this huge push, but like for instance, they were advertising or saying that, oh, we sold 40 million Windows 8 licenses in the first month. But when you look at how many Windows 7 licenses they would have sold anyways in that first month, their regular Windows 7 sales in a month is 20 million licenses. So to move 40 million Windows 8 in a month, doesn't necessarily indicate a very thriving start to Windows 8 there. Okay. So one of the advantages that you get on Android is that you do have the ability to do your development from either Windows, Mac, or Linux, and so you aren't just limited to using, basically your development machine right now can probably work for Android application development. And so for a lot of people, that ends up helping them get started. So the that can really be an advantage. This last item here, developed for tablet or phones the same way. That's an area that a lot of people are kind of upset with Android actually, and is changing as we speak. And basically what's occurring there is that we had a lot of these Android tablet applications that were essentially the same as their Windows, or excuse me, their phone-based counterparts, and basically were just larger on the screen when you went to a tablet. We've actually seen that change recently where a lot of people are focusing on the device and customizing the user interface to the device. It ends up being something that can be more difficult on Android though, because you don't necessarily know what devices to aim for. The number of screen resolutions and devices out there is really quite large. You have some devices that are 4 inches that have a 1080p screen, the super high resolution screen. And of course, that's still a phone form factor in comparison to, some of these 10-inch tablets that may have a resolution that's, half that or even less. So this last one here I actually mentioned for Windows Phone 7. A lot of this isn't really accurate anymore. Of course, because we have Windows Phone 8, they are still developing in C#, but Silverlight, which is what a lot of the applications that are in the Microsoft Store are based on, basically has been completely obsoleted by Microsoft. And so that's one of the things that has caused some issues with development for Windows Phone 8 and also for Windows 8. They went ahead and obsoleted the programming language that a lot of the applications were written in, which has required a rewrite right off the bat for tons of applications out there. Of course, we are on a Windows-based PC only when you are talking about Windows Phone 8 development. One of the advantages that you do get, though, is that you have access to alternate programming languages. Almost anything that you can do with .NET ends up being available for use there.
Hey, Oliver, this is Nathan.
Yeah. Hey, Nathan, we got you.
Yeah, we didn't put the audio pin in there.
That'll do it.
We just dialed in with our phone.
Gotcha.
It's easier for us, and we got a conference room phone. So,
Perfect.
we're here.
So we're probably not going to be able to share your screen then, or are you signed on that way also?
Yeah, we're signed on Nathan's machine here, watching you.
Okay.
We can make him a presenter.
Yeah, let's see here.
Yeah.
Maybe Thomas can. There we go.
So, just before Nathan gets started, just a quick question generally from everybody. How many of you are actually using Windows Phone right now? The Nokia or whatever?
The Lumias or the HTC.
Just say yes.
Riaz, this is Nizar. I'm using Windows Phone. As you know, I'm a Microsoft partner.
Yeah, I know you are. All right. Yeah, I would be surprised if you didn't use it. So, generally, I guess most of the people are either using Android or iOS. But Nizar, what is your? Did you use any other phone? What other phone did you use before Windows 8?
I had an Android phone, and the first version of Android was very good. The Android platform in general is very stable and very, I guess, diverse. Yeah, I use Android.
And what is your feeling about comparing the two with the Windows 8 right now?
Honestly, I like Windows 8 right now because it has a lot more features, but I haven't used the latest and greatest Android platform. The one thing I can tell you, even though being Microsoft partner, just to be honest, is that there are times that a lot of those apps on Windows don't work, and there's a lot of apps that you're kind of picking and choosing. The ones that are made for Windows, they work well. And there are some popular apps that they work no matter which platform you have. For example, Pandora. I think Pandora works on every one of them well. But generally speaking, I also have an iPad at home, and I use a lot of apps in the Apple ecosystem, and I'm very happy with those. So for me, I think even though I see the session right now so far, we're talking about different ways of developing applications in 3 different platforms, and I see that the Apple one is only allowing you to do only one development pattern, which is, I guess, Model View Controller. Even though there could be a restriction for the developers, but I think anybody who does apps on Apple, they really do it well. And generally speaking, the apps in the Apple world, I think, work quite a bit the way the consumer expects them to.
So in your space with the Microsoft world that you dwell in, do you see adoption of Android or tablet in the corporate use?
Well, Microsoft Surface has come up, and we are playing with it right now. We ordered the first one, and it's a pretty good response to all that wars out there. But to make it even better, they're coming up with the Pro version, which will run the full desktop I think in January or so. They're coming up with it.
Okay.
And that will be very interesting in the business world, in the corporate marketplace.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the consumer marketplace, but I think in the corporate marketplace, it's going to be a very good, interesting play.
Yeah, you could run existing applications.
Exactly.
John, you want to take over?
This is John. Hi, everybody. When we decided to look at things, it was probably about third quarter of 2011, and really all that was available at the time was either Titanium or Xcode, and doing it native. And of course you have the web app as an option too. So there's really basically 3 different kinds. You could go with a web app or a hybrid app, which is kind of, I guess, what Titanium does, where you have a little bit of both, where it's kind of like a web app and kind of like native, because it ties into the interface, and then just basically native. But the biggest challenge for us was the fact that a lot of places where our guys go, they don't have 3G, so we needed a way for them to carry some of the data with them. And we found the best way to do that was to just have a locally stored database, and we ended up writing our own data synchronization that works using web services, and it's been working out really well for us. When we started, we just kind of bought a couple tablets. We bought like a Motorola Android tablet and compared it with a iPad tablet, and there was really no comparison. I think that the iPad won hands down with everybody that we showed it to, and so it was between that and also checking out Titanium. We were looking at whatever the free one was. There's another one too, I think, that is a paid one. But starting Titanium, we found that the simulator for the Android apps was extremely slow, and it was kind of clunky. I guess there's a lot of Java stuff happening in the background, where the IDE is maybe built in Java or something. It's just really slow. We did like a Hello World application, and I mean, it took about 5 minutes for it to compile and open in the simulator. And the other part of the Apple deal is that you still have to be a registered Apple developer to use Titanium to build Apple applications. So we figured if we're sticking our toes in the water, we might as well stick our whole foot in. So then we ended up just buying Macs and going 100% native. So that was the extent of it, and we were really pleased with how fast Xcode is, and I have a pretty good C background, so it wasn't too bad to pick up.
So, Nathan, do you have anything that you want to there? Can you guys see our screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So what we developed was a CRM for our outside sales reps, and like John said, we're locally storing in a SQLite database all our customer information for that particular rep, and basically what this application does is allows them to create a call plan, have all the customer information to review, sales, warranty information, and to create presentations whenever they go into the customer. They can either use, we built a presentation tool for them, or they can, our app links to Keynote and a tool called Presentations where they can do Keynote presentations through our application. I'll show you quickly here what they do. So they come in, they build their call plan, or I got a call plan built. So this is a list of all their customers that they need to see for that given period that they specified. So they click on their customer or tap on their customer, and they get instant, as long as they have 3G connection, they get instant information on their sales inquiries, warranties for that customer.
Some of those things that were where it's a lot extra data to carry around, we just used web services to connect and grab that if we can get it. Otherwise, it's locally carried and stuff.
So they review their customer information before they're going in to make a sales call. They can look at the previous notes from calls that they made. Then this is where I'm talking about where they can create a presentation on their own using our application. So they can create and load, save presentations that they've done before, or they can build a presentation from scratch here. They got to tell us what their goal of the call is. So in this case, I'm going to say I'm going to go in. I'm trying to get them to use gas engines, and based off of that, we give them all the picture files, all the videos, all the literature that is linked to a gas presentation. So from here, they can go in and select all the picture files they want to show to the customer. They can select any videos. One that I know we got. So from this point, they can hit save, and they can go in, and now they're ready to do a presentation with that customer. So they simply toggle between their videos and pictures and do their presentation. And all this is recording statistics behind the scenes, keeping track of what videos, what pictures they show, and all that. Before they had this application, they were manually taking in a binder full of pictures. They had a DVD player that they had to lug along. They had another binder full of literature to give out. Now with this application, we got it all stored on the device for them, so all they're carrying into the customer is this device now. And they don't have to keep track of what pictures they show, what videos they show. That's all being done behind the scenes now for them, which is a tremendous time saver for those guys.
That'll play through there.
I think I don't know how great it'll play, but it'll play.
Yeah. So, I know that's just a quick rundown. We've been developing this thing for going on a year now. There's a lot of things besides this here.
One of the major things to think about was how the whole entire data synchronization process was going to go, and a lot went into that. It was pretty insane.
Yeah, that's probably been our biggest challenge with this application is keeping the data, because the records that these salesmen are changing out there in the field are also getting modified here in the factory, possibly. So we have the whole data replication issue and keeping everything straight between the device and what we have stored here at Jasper.
Gotcha. And so, did you guys essentially roll your own that way, or did you look at any packages out there that provided data synchronization? Or
we wrote our own. We did. We didn't do a whole lot of research on that because we were already.
Yeah, I mean, all of us up here, I guess, we know SQL well, and it was easy enough just to use the MySQL libraries and write it that way. And we decided using that over core data because you could take the file and just open it up on a PC on a SQL editor, SQLite editor, and you could just go to town on there too. We could check for problems and everything. It just was a little bit more flexible for us.
And how are you guys going to distribute your application?
We're looking at a product right now called Mobile Iron to do a lot of that, and it's sold through AT&T.
Yeah, but we have not. Right now we have this out there with only 3 salesmen that are using it. Right now we're doing it all over the air deployment. But here in the next few weeks we're going to implement the Mobile Iron, and hopefully that'll make things go a lot smoother.
And what we did is, we're developing in the house for ourselves, and I've noticed that at a lot of different DataFlex conferences and stuff that a lot of people, a lot of the rest of the community are in a different situation than we are, in that we develop for ourselves. We didn't have to use the App Store and go with a developer license. What we did was we applied for an enterprise developer license where we don't really need Apple's approval for the apps that we make. They give us a certificate where we can sign them ourselves, but we're kind of sworn to deploy in our organization only, and there's a pretty big contract of things you have to sign up to make that happen. But it's $299 a year versus the $99 for a single developer to develop apps for the App Store.
And do you guys have plans to develop more apps or expand this one further?
Yeah. We are looking at adding some routing capabilities to this current application where, it'll plan out the best route for that salesman to take based off his call plan for that day, and also feed that information back to us, telling us if he followed that path or not. But yeah, they got all kinds of ideas now that we'll probably be looking at doing some kind of app development for out in the plant, replacing some of our scanners. It seems to be a cheaper solution to.
Right. We went to an Apple developer conference, and they had a guest speaker from a company. I think it was called Integrated Peripherals. I think that was right. But they sell a battery sled that has a mag stripe reader and a laser barcode scanner on the front, and you can combine that with just a regular iPod Touch, and you've got yourself a pretty cheap scanner versus like an Intermec or a Motorola or Symbol kind of scanner. So it's a really economical way of doing that sort of thing.
Did either of you guys go to classes, or did you just kind of sit down and use it? How did you get going?
Well, John had experience in C before, and he sat down. He read a book on it. Myself, I just watched a lot of YouTube videos of some example projects and stuff like that, and just kind of picked it up on my own, but it's not that bad to learn, to be honest. The interface, developing the interface has been, I don't want to use the word easy, but it's been not as bad as I would imagine. Like I said, the biggest thing we were running into was the data replication issues and that type of thing.
You know, when you drop a standard control, it was things like, you know, how do I make these cells larger and insert more labels, kind of adding subviews in that and stuff. And you Google for it. I mean, it's just out there. Stack Overflow is really awesome with that. I mean, the question's been asked before and it's been answered. I mean, that's basically the way it is. It's been pretty cool. That part's really nice.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for showing us.
Yeah, no problem.
Speaking about something you mentioned there, go ahead, Riaz.
No, just an interesting thought, because I know that this is a need for you right now and you're learning all of this. So say, for example, Windows 8 comes out, the Windows 8 Pro, whenever that comes out, where the plans are there, where you would be able to write these applications in the tools that you use, like Dataflex or any other Windows development tools. Would that change anyway your strategy for mobile development?
That's
Probably.
yeah, probably. You know, but still, right now at this point, we're kind of all in as it stands right now. But you know, the Pro for the Surface isn't even out yet, and it's like what, first quarter next year, right? Sometime in January or the end of January or something like that.
The Microsoft partner would know. Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Oliver.
What you guys were speaking on about the the data synchronization.
I'm sorry, I interrupted. I was on mute, so I realized you were alluding to me, Riaz, in terms of the timeline for the release of Windows 8. I guess Windows 8 is out, except I guess
Windows Surface, the Windows 8 Pro Surface.
Yeah, that's going to be in January or February timeframe, and obviously Windows 8 forms are out, and the mobile development platform is available out there. So there's a lot of things going on with as far as their mobile platform is concerned. But I think earlier on you alluded to that whole platform war, and I think Oliver was saying that it's going to come in much more of a smaller version than we used to have those operating system wars. But as far as Microsoft is concerned, I think they're a much smaller player. So I'm not sure, even if they do have a great platform to develop apps on, how many people will be committed to developing on Windows 8?
Well, from the enterprise, I mean, I wouldn't use Microsoft and small player at the same time. But
well, in the mobile world, it is, right? In the mobile world, it is.
But the context here is that a lot of the folks attending the session, they already have a Windows application that they use. They're familiar with the tools. I think that developing, leveraging that tool to develop something quickly that runs on a tablet-like platform. There's certainly like John and Nathan said, that they spent about a year learning the tools, figuring things out, whereas in the other case, they already know those things. So that's going to be probably the driving force behind it. Oliver, go ahead. You were saying something?
We've got some hands raised too.
Go ahead.
You can go ahead and
see. Rich has a question. Rich, go ahead. Please jump in.
We have a client that is essentially a Microsoft client. We're developing for them in Microsoft Light Switch. We may also be doing some stuff in ASP.NET. But this is really, I'll circle back to that. Somebody said something earlier about when the Surface Pro comes out, whether or not that would change their strategy as far as a mobile development. Now, Pro is an x86 environment. x86, you can run a browser. You don't really have a Metro application running within the x86 side of the house. So how does that affect people's strategy as far as mobile app development? Because I don't really think of x86 as being developing native apps. What would you use as far as native app development that's touch-enabled, except for the Metro side of the house?
Well, I know what a lot of people are doing. Metro, by the way, isn't only ARM-based. You can develop x86 Metro-based applications. So what a lot of people are doing with that strategy is essentially using their existing library of x86 code and putting a new user interface on it using Metro.
Okay, so you're talking about essentially using, developing a new, the UI interface effectively. In other words, so, okay. All right, so they would be using an x86-based machine, or they'd be using an Intel-based processor in an x86 development environment for a mobile application using their existing server-side code.
I think my understanding is that it will be like any other Intel-based PC, that any Windows application that runs on Windows 8 will be able to run on Windows Pro without any changes. It won't have the touch interface, but you still will be able to, like Microsoft has, what is it? I think the Microsoft Office is not completely touch, right, Oliver?
Correct. Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, it's just a.
That's kind of the one exception app.
I think that was the one thing I didn't mention was the touch aspect of the process, because when this particular client, for instance, is out in the field and they have a lot of problems, it's an agricultural environment, they have a lot of problems with dust and silt and stuff, so they try to stay away from natural keyboards and mice and things like that.
Yeah.
So that puts a little bit of, and then to jump over to the DataFlex side of the house, I mean, we know that DataFlex is coming out with a new version that's effectively web enables their existing application framework to some degree, but that doesn't give you anything towards a touch interface either, or does it because it's effectively running within a browser?
Well, you're just getting the point and click kind of functionality at that point, right? You're not really getting that.
Right.
But this is an area of interest for us that we're looking into.
Okay.
So
another interesting thing, and it hadn't occurred to me right away, is that with the advent of the whole tablet thing, I think part of the goal is to eliminate the function keys. And I don't know, does the Surface even have function keys? That's a big part of Visual DataFlex.
yeah.
Yeah, I think if you go to look at it from the standpoint of VDF natively on a Pro, yeah, you definitely can run a VDF application on a Surface Pro tablet. There's no doubt about that at all. But I think where it kind of fits in there is, can you do something that is both? So can you take an x86 application and give it this newer front end? And the answer is somewhat yes. Right now with VDF you can't effectively do that, but certainly with other environments they're looking at, yes, you can build an HTML JavaScript based touch interface. That's something that definitely is there in the Windows 8 Metro style, or whatever they're calling it nowadays. They even have that ability there. It's something we certainly don't have from VDF right now, though. So that, like Rio's saying, that's an area of interest for us also right now. Is how do you do things like that?
Yeah, and I think that depending on how Microsoft really nobody knows how the Windows Pro would look like, and are there any limitations or not. But if they are able to run all existing Windows application on this Surface platform, Windows 8 Pro platform, instantly Microsoft is a big player on the mobile side in the enterprise market, right? All these applications can be ported over. So I think what it will do is pretty much kill all the Ultra notebook or the netbooks completely, and people would say, hey, if I want to create a portable PC, carry around a portable PC, Surface is the preference for us. So in the consumer market, obviously the boat has sailed on that side. But I think on the enterprise side, Microsoft can still leverage that, because enterprise haven't really adopted large scale all the mobile platforms yet completely. So that could be an interesting thing, just to see what happens in the next 6 to 8 months. Anybody else has any comments, questions before we move? All right, I think that we're going to end the session today. Thanks for all your participation. Oliver, thank you. John.
There's one last thing I needed to get to.
Right.
I wanted to do a little bit of follow-up based on our last presentation, and it kind of fits in well with what Jasper showed us, and how they had mentioned they had developed their own syncing platform. I'm going to send this specifically out, but we had gotten a question on cross-platform data synchronization, and they're actually, this whole idea of writing your own, that's basically what a lot of people are doing. And I just wanted to mention, we'll put this out in our notes, but this is from a 2009 presentation for iPhone developers by a guy named Dan Grover, and this is a long PDF presentation. I think it's probably a couple hundred slides, but it goes through basically the method that this individual took to decide upon and build his own synchronization platform. And really, this platform that he has built is, the model he's using is being used by a lot of iPhone developers now. So we're going to put this in our notes. It works for Android also, but he's kind of gone through a lot of the issues related to data synchronization that's more than just like a Dropbox style, that goes into actual record synchronization. So we'll put this in our notes. For those that were interested in that issue, we'll have it there for you to look at.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for participation, and we'll probably see you next month with another topic. We'll send out an email about the what that topic is going to be. If any of you has any suggestion that you'd like to for us to consider in this kind of forum, please let us know. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks very much.